Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode on the Hermitcraft server. This is the Hermitcraft information kiosk right here and we are missing a staff member. There used to be a little upside down zombie fella here called Dinnerbone and he's gone missing. Now you can see here this thing doesn't look like it's been tampered with at all. My first thoughts were that maybe it took damage somehow, but no one knows what's happened to this guy and I doubt anyone's going to lie if they accidentally killed him. It's really not a big deal. So it's kind of a mystery as what's happened to him. Now I would guess that there's some sort of bug or glitch that has caused him to despawn, but there you go, we've lost Dinnerbone, which is a mystery and will probably remain that way forever. But anyway, this episode, what are we going to be doing? Every episode I like to outline in the beginning my plans, because usually I have plans from the beginning to the end of the episode, sometimes I don't, and sometimes I like to experiment on camera, which I think has been going really well lately. So a good example of that was recently where we made the pig farm over behind the tree farm. Now usually what I'd do is I'd go into a test world and do tests and experiments and make sure things work before I start recording, but that time I felt like doing it on camera. It sounded like a good idea in principle, and so we did the test here on Hermitcraft just to see what it would turn out like. And it turned out to be a really big success. So I thought what we would do this episode is work on a farm, which is going to be a netherwart farm. But rather than me figuring everything out in advance, doing tests in a test world, we would play around with some of the ideas that I've got here on camera and then hopefully come up with a farm design and build it in this episode. So that is kind of the plan. But first of all, I have something to show you. In the last episode, I went strip mining. Well, actually, I went strip mining in between episodes, but I talked about it in the last one. We have run out of smooth stone and cobblestone, so we need to get some supplies. So after strip mining, I've got myself a large chest of cobblestone, as you can see here. Now, usually when I go strip mining, this stuff just fills up your inventory, so I throw it away as I go along and pick up the valuables. But I took a trip back every time and just filled up this chest. And then when it got as full as it is now, I decided that'll do. So anyway, let's have a look at the goodies that I got. You can see here I found an abandoned mine shaft, so I got some rails as well. And occasionally when mining, I would accidentally mine it with my normal pick, so that's why we got a few extra items at the top here. But 36 diamond ore, or 37 because of this one, that is really good. We got 8 emerald ore as well. 61 lapis, that's alright. You can see here some gold, plenty of coal. And what's interesting here is usually I get a lot less redstone ore than I do iron, whereas this time I got quite a lot, which is really good. I'm pleased with that because that's the main thing I was after. Obviously diamonds as well, but redstone ore was the main thing. And iron ore here, this is pretty much a building material now, I consider it as, because we've got an iron farm on the server and I don't really need to smelt this, although that is not really anything other than iron ore, is it? So I don't see many opportunities to use that, but we're going to leave it as iron for now. I'm not going to bother smelting that. And so I got an idea when I saw the emerald ore in this chest. Now my plan was, when building the netherwart farm, to build it underground, and in the last episode we got ourselves a beacon and I wanted to put that to use. So if we put efficiency 2 on the beacon and I get myself an efficiency 5 silk touch pick, which is something I got to do because this is efficiency 4, and then we will be able to instantly mine stone underground, well, or above ground, it doesn't really matter where, but we could dig out a large area underground really quickly, and that could be the place for the netherwart farm. And I was thinking if we did that in extreme hills biome, over there's plenty of space, then we could get ourselves a lot of emerald ore, and it'd be a kind of an interesting experiment. Once we know how many blocks we're going to be mining, we could see how much emerald ore we get, and then figure out, what kind of ratio it is from stone to emerald ore. Now I do believe that emerald ore spawns everywhere in an extreme hills biome, no matter how tall it goes. I'll have to double check that, but either way we could build it into the hills, well, not round there because that's Joe Hill's area, Joe Hill's on the hill, or underground, or somewhere in that extreme hills region. It doesn't really matter, but we will find a spot and we will do that later on. So the first thing I need to do, I guess, is get myself prepared. At the moment I need to just tidy up my inventory and get some materials together for testing out netherwart farms. So one of the things that you need to make a netherwart farm is soul sand, and actually it can sometimes be a little bit difficult to find in the nether depending on your seed. I've been looking around for ages and I found a few patches on the edge of mountains, which weren't very good for harvesting because there are lava lakes below them, but at last I found a big patch of soul sand on relatively level terrain like this over here. But the thing is, I've almost run out of beef now. I've got one steak left, And also I wasn't really prepared. You can see here my shovel is almost damaged, but I have got a few stacks of this, probably more than we're going to need. But I don't know how big this farm is going to be, so while I'm here I'm going to get as much of this as I can, and hopefully I'll be able to make it back. I'm not sure exactly what direction I should be heading in. I think I need to go that way for a bit and then sort of turn around, and there's a path somewhere that will take me back to spawn, but it might be a bit of a risky journey because I came unprepared and I have one steak. Yeah, so it's going to be a little bit risky getting back. So I got back safe and sound, nothing to worry about there, and I've just been setting up some farm designs. There's actually only two that I really want to look at the moment, just because as I've been making these and brainstorming different ways of doing this, I've kind of got an idea going that I want to follow. But first of all I wanted to show you what I initially thought of, which is having a kind of flat area for the soul sand to be grown in, and there's basically two ways of harvesting this. So this is our flat area right here. One of those ways is using a dispenser with water in it, which I don't think I have a button on me. Let's make one of those quickly. Now the thing with this design, oh I did, they were in my hotbar, is it's very much, you know, walk in, replant everything and then walk back out again, and most farm designs are going to do something along those lines. So what I'm looking for is something a little bit different to that, but we'll just show you this design. So basically what happens when we flush it with water is it's going to push all of the drops over from one corner to the other. Now because this is soul sand, all of those drops get picked up pretty much instantly by the hoppers that are underneath them. So with water what we could do is just have a hopper down in this corner here, and then that means the water pushes all of the drops into this corner and the chest picks them up. But because it's soul sand, it picks them up at any point as well. And the reason that I've done that is because there's an alternate way we can harvest this using shifting floors. So let's go around and plant these down, and then activate the shifting floor. That'll be enough for a demonstration. Don't need to hold shift while I press it. There you go, and it looks like this one here doesn't want to be picked up by the hopper below. That's interesting. I'm going to guess there's items passing for it. Nope. Ah, that is very interesting. Let's do this a couple more times and see if this happens again. So, soul sand is actually, I think, 0.8 of a block or 0.9. And it means that the hoppers below them can actually pick up the items that are on top of a block. Now with a regular block like sandstone, what you would do is you would run a minecart underneath it, because that minecart can pick up a block in distance, but it's on top of rails, which I have in my inventory. Let's have a look. It has a hitbox, so the cart sits on top of it, and it means it's slightly higher, so it goes through the bottom of the block above it, and therefore it can suck up the items from above. So that's how you would do it with normal blocks, but because we're planting these on soul sand, it means we can put hoppers directly below them. So let's activate that again. Okay, that time it was fine. I don't think I'm going to do this too much on camera. I just wanted to sort of show you the design, but that is interesting. I'll probably do that a couple of times off camera and just see if it happens again. And it didn't happen that time. Now you can see here some of the drops go up onto the side, so we'd have to make the walls bigger, but in general this isn't the type of farm that I'm looking for, because depending on how big you build it or whatever you do with it, you're basically always going to do the same thing, walk up to it, spend ages replanting, and then you have a button to harvest. I'm looking for something a little bit different to that. So what I've been thinking of is using minecarts and rails. Now this over here is a shifting floor design that was popularised by Efo. I think he originally used this for netherwarts or possibly wheat. I know I used the design for wheat as well, but basically you press the button and it pushes the blocks across and then back again. It almost looked like it didn't do it. Okay, that time it clearly did. And this is actually the exact same mechanics that we were using on this one over here, except our output is just wired to all of the pistons on that side. And then over here you have a torch, and so when a block goes above it, it sends a signal around on a delay and activates the ones on the other side, which is exactly what we have going on at the other end over there. So my idea with this is, what if we could automatically replant the way we do when we automatically breed? We just hold down a button and things like the minecart and the rail could do the rest for us. Now I got a feeling that a while ago they changed something that will make this really difficult for what I've got in mind, and that is that when you go around corners on a minecart, you used to stay facing the same direction. So, or sorry, you would stay relative to the same direction. So if I'm in this minecart and I'm facing that way, and we go round a corner, then when the minecart goes round the corner, I should go round the corner and face in that direction. But I remember playing around with this a while ago, and it wasn't the case anymore. They changed it, and it would sort of shift you over a little bit, but not the full way around. So that could give us a little bit of problem. But what I'm thinking here is that we could automatically replant by coming alongside this in a minecart on a rail track, and we hold down right click and it automatically replants all of the nether warts, and then it takes us to the next one of these. So the minecart could go round a corner and then go back along the other side, and we're just holding down right click and it's doing all of the work. But one of the problems with that is collecting these things. Now we could have hoppers underneath each of these, that would be one way to collect them, but that would be a pretty excessive use of hoppers if you ask me. So the way I'm thinking that we could do a little test here, and breaking all the blocks, is to plant some of these, then harvest them. There we go, and see if we can pick them up going by in a minecart. And I think that was the only minecart I had, so let's take that back. So we harvest it, and you can see, I think some of the nether warts either grouped up or maybe fell underneath that. I went behind, no, okay. I'm not sure. It's weird the way they derp around. It makes you think they've sort of popped out and gone into odd places. Anyway, let's go past and see. So we pick up those ones. That's a good sign. I'm not used to doing that. You have to hold down left shift to get out now. But we really need to test, can we pick up the ones on the far side? So if I throw an item like that, that didn't do it. We want it to hit the back wall like that, and I think that is now resting against the side of it. That looks fairly far back as well. We want to see if we can pick up the ones that are all the way back, which I think we can. Yeah, I had a feeling we might have a problem with this. Now I'm not sure that they were as far back as they can go, and the best way to do that would be to use water. So what I'm going to do here is build a little frame and try and push all the items all the way to the back side, and then we can make sure that we can actually pick them up. Okay, so we put the bucket of water here. Then we throw our nether warts in. They're all going to group up basically because they're all going to the corner. But you can see there the water's going to push them all the way into the corner, and then they're just derped. Where are they derping to? I'm not sure. So let's remove that. It's strange because they're on soul sand. It's like it doesn't want to go all the way over. Maybe we could use a piston. That could work. I've got a feeling this is going to be a little more tricky than I thought it would, because soul sand is making the items act a little bit funny. What could we power this with? A torch? And the items have disappeared. Did they fall down below? Yes, they did. Okay, that's interesting. Of course that would happen. Okay, so if I throw an item from up here on the side, that was a very bad example, you can actually see the item hit the edge of the wall, fall down, and then it pushes out a little bit. Now I've got a feeling that's because of the soul sand having a different height. It just, well, it looks like a full block, but it's not. You know what I'm talking about. I think it just kind of messes around with the items a bit, and they're not sure where they're supposed to go. So if we remove all of this, and one of the good things about soul sand is you can instantly mine it, although sometimes that can get in the way as well. I think that's basically where they're always going to land. As far back as they go is like that, because if they pop off and hit the wall, they're just going to move forward again. So it looks like this would actually work. So let's get this and move forward. And it looks like we pick everything up. That is good to know. So the next thing that we need to test before we move forward, and I'm doing that again, is that when we go around the corner we're going to retain our view. So if I'm looking like at a right angle, I guess you could say, or in the opposite direction to the rails, if I'm going to maintain that when I go around a corner. So I was right that it changed, but what I didn't realise is that it actually just keeps you fixed in the same direction. Now that limits the possibilities to some extent, but I think for what I had in mind we could still do this, because wherever we go on this track we know what way we're going to be facing, which means we can adjust ourselves and hold down right click. So we're going to be planting netherwarts. And another thought has just popped into my mind. We're going to need to reload us with more nether warts. Like with breeding, as we go around and we're planting it, the amount of nether warts that we have in our hand is going to go down. So we're going to have to do a fill up the inventory trick, and then somehow the farm is going to have to give us nether warts. This is getting a lot more complicated than I thought it would, and I think at this point I'm going to stop and think about this a little bit, but let me give you an idea of what my overall idea was. We were going to have rows of these things. Now this is a short one, they can go a lot longer than that, but we would have a couple of them next to each other, and you would go past it in a minecart, and then the plan was to come back on yourself, and there would be ones on the other side, which we can no longer do because we're always going to be facing the same direction. But then after you've planted both of those, or one of them as we would do now, you would then go around the track and go up to the next level, so these would be layered, and then you would come back across and plant down a whole bunch more. But then we've also got to distribute nether warts to the player as they're going along, which is going to be tricky. So at this point I just need to give it some thought. Oh, I'm such a dummy. I am such a dummy. Part of this involves collecting the nether warts as well. So as you're going around, you're going to be picking them up anyway. So you're basically always going to have a full amount in your hands. So actually it looks like we're going to be able to go ahead with this idea. So quite some time has passed since I last recorded. I've been busy in a test world, and I've forgotten how much fun you can have actually putting these things together. It has taken me a fair amount of time, but the learning process is pretty fun. You know, you make some changes, you find out what's wrong, you keep changing things up, and eventually you end up with the design which I have there in the background. So I started off with this right here. We have a 1-tick pulse at the beginning here. I should grab myself a minecart, so when that passes over you can see the farm is harvested. Now one thing that I haven't really tested, which we could do right now actually, I'm a little unprepared as you can see, is if it's enough time for us to get to the nether warts and plant them down. So one thing I haven't done with all of this is actually tested it. It's all sort of been done in theory in my mind, but it does look like it's a good design. And where are the nether warts? Why can't I find them? There we go. See, they're not in the brewing one. That always confuses me. They're in materials. So let's get in this minecart, go forward, and yeah, that looked fine. But we've just straight away found a big problem with this. You're not going to be able to plant it on each and every one. That is actually really frustrating because I kind of finished my design, I thought, and I didn't expect to see that. That is a big problem. I know a way to fix it, but it's going to be a real pain. We're going to need to blink powered rails going across. This whole design has kind of been thrown up in the air now, because you would have to blink these powered rails to make you go slightly slower, but that means every single track here would need to be powered rail, and then we'd need to fit in some sort of pulse generator somewhere and then wire it up to that, which is possible, but the amount of gold that's going to cost me in survival isn't possible. Well, there goes my recording and my idea. I guess I'll walk you through the rest of this, because actually it's really funny. You go to record, you think you've got everything sussed out, and you keep finding problems with your own ideas when you explain them to someone else other than yourself, i.e. you know, the audience. It just kind of puts things in a different light, and then you figure, oh wait a minute, that doesn't work. But anyway, I started off with something like this, and what I did is I stacked them on top of each other. So what would happen is you would go through like this, and then on the next layer you would come through in the same direction as well. So then what I thought I would do is double this up, so we'd copy it, we'd spin it around so it's parallel on this side, and then that means that the beginning bit here would be like this. You go around the corner and then you go down the other side. Now the problem with that is that you're going to face in this direction, and so when you come back down this side, the soul sand would be on the other side of you, and that wouldn't have turned you around. But that can easily be solved just by taking this design and, rather than rotating it, just pushing it over onto this side so you'll face the same direction when you come past the soul sand. But anyway, that led me to create a U-turn at the end of each of these, and then when you got down to the other end you would have a U-turn that would go up one level, and then you'd go down the next height like that. But that meant when you got to the top that you would have a track that would go all the way down to the bottom back to the beginning, which is not really what I wanted. I wanted something a little more efficient so that all the time you spent going up and down you'd actually end up where you started. So that's when I decided to change the design. Now this little track here was shown to me by Madebo, and this is very useful. I couldn't really figure out a way to do this, a sort of one wide way to come up. Let me actually show you that in action. because it's really cool. So if I go along like this, we're going to go up here, hit the edge, and then come back down the other way, and we're going to do that again. And so this way we're going all the way up to the top on one side, and then when we finish that when we finish that at the top here, we're going to go do the U-turn, go down the other side, and then that's going to be really simple. It's just going to drop us down one layer at a time. So where is that? It's somewhere here. So it's really simple. You just get dropped down like that, then you go across again, you get dropped down, and back you go. Now the problem here is that, as I said, you need to be facing one direction with the soul sand, and when you come around on the other side, you're going to face into the glass. So the solution there is just to copy this and paste it, you know, without mirroring it, and then you'd be facing in the same direction. But after all of that hard work designing this, it's my own fault really. I should have tested that straight away. It should have occurred to me that the speed that you travel in a minecart is going to affect how you place the items on the blocks. As you can see here, you're not going to be able to place it on each and every one, which makes this really efficient. And I'm starting to think now that perhaps we should ditch the whole minecart idea, because whatever we do, we're going to have that blinking track. And if we want to do this on a large scale, which is kind of what I wanted to do, you know, have a big nice netherwart farm, then that's going to cost me a lot of gold, which is something that I don't have at the moment. So I really didn't just want to walk away from this and abandon the idea of doing a netherwart farm. So I thought about it for ages, and I just couldn't think of anything that maybe hadn't been done before, or at least was kind of new to me. And I came up with this, which isn't really, I'd say, unique or like a new way of doing it, but I definitely like the design, and I'm not sure if something quite like this has been done before, but it's really simple. Basically you have the soul sand blocks extended like this, so you can walk across and plant, and then at the flick of the switch you can pull all of these back and all the netherwarts will drop down. So this one right here is the first one that I made. This I think looks the best. You walk across here and the soul sand's right in front of you, so you can look down and place it, but the problem with that is when these blocks retract, the netherwarts pop up into the air and then they land onto the half slabs, which isn't necessarily a problem. It's something that we want to avoid just in case some of those netherwarts despawn or get lost. But the thing is, you're going to start off with this farm by harvesting it, because these things take a while to grow. When they've grown, you hit the switch and then they all fall down. Now we're probably going to have a water stream at the bottom here that goes into a hopper, and that'll be right next to the switch as well. So then when you hit it again, you're going to walk across these platforms and replant, so you're going to pick up any that landed on it. But I thought it'd be a good idea to look at the alternatives. So this is one of them right here. I haven't seen any netherwarts pop up over this. I have tested it a few times. In theory, I think it is possible, or maybe not. I can't remember how high up they pop off, but if they go higher than a block, then technically it'd be possible for them to land on the top of this, but I haven't seen any land, and so you could walk across like that and look down. But the problem with this, I think, is that there's too much of this soul sand in your face, and also if you walk right up to it, you can see a lot of your views blocked and there's just a small gap. So then what I did is I lowered it down by a half slab. Now I think it's still possible for the netherwarts to pop up and land on top of this, but it's not as likely, and again I said you'd be able to pick it up. So I think a compromise is a good idea, and this is probably what I'd go with. There is actually still a fourth alternative, which would be to have it level with the soul sand like this, which I don't like that because it makes it easy to walk onto the soul sand, which I don't really want to do. So with these other ones you can't do that. Like you can see the gap here because of the half slab above you means you can't walk onto the soul sand. But anyway, let's look at this. So if I can get on there, yeah, you can see you've got a nice big view. Even when you walk up to this, it's only in the top of your view, and that makes it really easy to plant the netherwarts. So the only other thing there really is to do here, I think, is think about how you get from one level to the next. Now you're going to go back and forth, so possibly at the end here what we could have is a ladder. I'm not really prepared for this, am I? So we have a ladder that goes up to the next level, and we know we're going to get off at this level here, so we could have a roof as well. And like that, we can then walk up to it, jump, and then possibly shift back like that. Maybe I can find a way to make that a little easier, perhaps having the ladder on this side here, but then the ladder again will be over on this side, and it will start here and go up at this level. So we can determine that we walk across up like that, and then when we get to the top, I think this is the end would be over here. Then we could have a water drop somewhere, so you just walk off the edge, drop back down to the beginning, and then you can walk away. So I think that's actually a really good design. What I need to do now is just figure out what materials I'm going to build this out of. I'm not sure if I like what we've got here, but I do want to use some fancy materials on this. It's nice to use things like quartz from time to time, although I don't think they're really going to suit this farm right here, but I'll have a look and see what I can come up with. At the beginning of this episode, I decided that we should do things a little different from usual. We should do some experimenting on camera and figure things out as we go. And I did not expect it to turn out like this, spending so much time in a creative world trying to come up with a design. I had a rough idea of what I was going to do, and I overlooked just the simplest flaw, the basic mechanism of the minecart. It moves too fast for us to plant the warts. So because of that, I spent a lot of time in the creative world, and this, I think, is the farm that we're going to build on Hermitcraft now. It's taken me quite some time to figure it out, but I'm pretty happy with what we have right here. I think there's like one or two minor tweaks that I still need to make, because I just had a look over everything again, and I spotted some flaws. But first of all, let's just look at this from the outside. You can see that for the amount of space that it takes up, it pretty much uses all of it. Like, there's a few air blocks over the back here that don't get used, but everything else is just chock-a-block with something, you know, blocks, pistons, or redstone and other building materials. It uses up the space really well, which is one thing I like about it. So if we go inside and have a look at the design decisions that I've made here. Now, the first big decision was what building materials are we going to use. I wanted to use quartz and nether brick because I think they look good together. And then we have the soul sand as well, so we got kind of all the different things from the nether going on in here. And so glowstone for lighting, that goes with that quite well. Now, originally I did want to throw in another material alongside the quartz, but I found that having just 3 colours on display like this, with the exception of glowstone, does actually look really good. And if we bring in another colour, doesn't really matter what material it is, there's just too much going on. So for that reason, I'm going to keep it like this. Now, one thing I might change is this bit here, because it's all nether brick, as you can see, so I think that needs to have something changed, but I'm not sure what exactly to do at the moment. So the way that this works is we have a ladder on the side, we go up that, we can get to each of the levels, we can walk in and out and replant. And one other thing I must point out here is the design that I showed you before. You could walk and plant them on the side, but on this one I've obviously put them on the other side, but also at the end as well, so you can plant them like this. So basically you'd come in, go down one side, get to the end, do a little 360, no, do a 180, and then come back down the other side. And then when you've done that, go up to the next floor. That was weird. Were we already at the top floor? I think we were. Anyway, and then you do the same thing again. So then when you've done doing that, you go down the other side here, and it drops you into water at the bottom. And this is right next to the button where we activate this, and also underneath this water there is a dropper. So that's where all the items are going to go into. That could be a chest, but I decided to use a dropper so that its hitbox goes all the way to the edge, and then we don't have to put extra blocks and stuff like that down there. So my original idea, I think I mentioned it earlier, was to have water underneath the soul sand to take all of this down to 1 point. Now if we were to add water under there, it means for automatic collection that has to come into a hopper, and then everything gets lowered down by 1 block, so we have to build a mini item elevator. And I thought, you know what, if I just put hoppers underneath all of these, that's going to be fine, and then it's going to come right down here underneath our water drop from above. So it's really nice design, you know, compact, everything kind of fits in the same space. So anyway, let's have a look at activating it. You press this button here, and they all shift back and then shift in again. Now, I might actually need to change that. I've just thought of a big flaw with this. That's really good. That's really good. And it's very easily solved. Let's add a lever. So, if we do this, all the nether warts are going to fall all the way down, and they're going to land in the hoppers. But if we use a button, then it doesn't give them enough time, because let's see what happens. Right. Oh, that was bad. Do not want to climb the ladder. So they come back in, and then the ones above open. So now all the ones falling down are going to land on the floors below them. So if we want this activated by a button, we're basically going to need some extra redstone back there, which is what I will do. I'll add a timer in. Otherwise you'll just do that. Oh. Okay, so let's go around the back and have a look at the redstone. One thing I want to change here is I want to move the pistons on this corner over onto that side, and then there'll be a group of 3 here rather than 1, and that just means that less pistons get fired at each time. But one of the things I was thinking here is that because it's going to be on the server, we should make it so that the pistons don't all fire at the same time. And we've seen a flaw with that now. I might change some of this wiring, because the wiring goes from the bottom upwards, And I guess one of the things I could do is possibly change it so the wiring comes from the top and goes downwards. You see, I thought I was done, and now I found another problem. Do you know what? I don't think I'm going to show you off this redstone right now because I want to change it. Okay, so the redstone I think is still not finalized, but this is a good idea of how it's going to work. First of all, we have this piston to push all of these blocks up so we can send up a signal to the top. That's fairly straightforward. Then that signal comes back round, powers the piston again and pushes it back down, which resets it. But when that arrives at the top, it turns off all of the pistons. You can see they're all powered at the moment, and so now we go around like this. So we have a 1 tick delay this time here. Still might tweak and change some of these things, but then we have 4 ticks here, so it means that this layer gets unpowered 4 ticks after the one above it. So let's see it in action. I've tested this a few times now, and you saw there that loads and loads of nether warts fell down. Now if we go up here and have a look at each layer, you can see just a couple of them catch each time, but it's not like loads of them are getting caught. And also notice how none of them are actually on the soul sand. Now something interesting, it's always the top layer that seems to have a few more on the nether brick right here, but none of them are on top of the soul sand, which would suggest that when they fall down they have enough time to go all the way down rather than landing on the soul sand when the pistons extend again. So now what we have to do is build this on Hermitcraft, but I've absolutely spent tons of time doing this, tons of recording, and so what I'm thinking is I'll try and do this in between episodes, and at the beginning of the next episode I'll be able to show you me building this, or maybe even I'll be able to put a time lapse together, which I think could be really cool. Now we might edit the redstone a little bit here because I still feel like there's some improvements that I can make. I'm not sure exactly what. This kind of gets the job done, but I feel like I just need to think it over one more time. So we're actually going to end the episode here, and then hopefully in the beginning of the next episode I'll be able to show you this finished and built on Hermitcraft. But that is going to be it from me. So as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.